Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I've prepared another list video for all of you, and I'm going to be calling it 10 Comic Book Hidden Gems. Every so often on this channel, I like to do a recommendation-based video, and that's certainly what we have here. These are all books that I took from different publishers that I just think deserve more readership, and at the end of the day, I just wanted to showcase and talk about them. Now, before we jump into today's list, I would just like to shout out the channel's sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see anything there you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's probably the best way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's hidden gem list. First on this list today is a trade paperback from Image Comics. This is Undiscovered Country Volume 1 Destiny by Scott Snyder, Charles Soule, and Giuseppe Camuncoli. Now this is a series I've talked about several times on the channel. I've actually to date reviewed the first 4 volumes of these trade paperbacks, and generally I'm just a huge fan of this sci-fi dystopian future kind of series. For those that maybe have no idea what Undiscovered Country is about, it's set in kind of a near future or alternate history modern day, wherein America has been blocked off, media blacked out, sealed off from the rest of the world, and in its absence, the rest of the world basically is divided into 2 major superpowers or groups, and in this world there is a global pandemic that has decimated the world's population. Out of nowhere, we receive an invitation from America inviting this eclectic dozen or so group of people into the country, supposedly having a cure for the disease. The group accepts and makes their way into America, but what they find there is decidedly different from what America was before. This now dystopian scapes finds our team trying to survive and find their way to the center of the conspiracy in the hopes of finding the cure. It's a really fun series that's definitely different than anything I've read before. I am a huge fan of all of these creators, and like I said, just something different, and I really like it. It's still an ongoing series for those that want to jump on board, and again, I just like to highlight it. I think it's a hidden gem, and for whatever reason, even with all of these great creators, I just never hear this book really talked about all that much. We haven't gotten news about any hardcover collections coming out, at least to my knowledge, but hopefully we see them in the future. Again, great art, great series, and it's one I always like to recommend. So if this sounds interesting to you, you can definitely check out some of my reviews on the series that I have in my library, or you can go ahead and pick up your own copies of Undiscovered Country. Next on my list today is an omnibus from Marvel Comics. This is Iron Fist, the Danny Rand early years omnibus. This massive collection of essentially Bronze Age Marvel Comics was a real treat. We not only have the Iron Fist run itself, but we also have some snippets from kind of the Kung Fu magazine that was coming out at the time, a couple crossovers, things like that. But this is where it all began for Danny Rand, the immortal Iron Fist. I didn't really know what to expect here. This was definitely one of my first comics I read that featured Iron Fist, and I had a blast with it. I did do a full review of this comic not too long ago on the channel. In general, I do know that Iron Fist is a street-level Marvel comic hero favorite, but he doesn't have a ton of great solo runs. He certainly has a great and memorable time with Luke Cage, and we have the great run from Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction that's more of a contemporary read, but really, this was an omnibus I didn't really expect, and I wanted to go back to the beginning and see what this character was like all the way back then. Overall, I was really delighted to see what I found here. We have a lot of great martial arts or kung fu mysticism kind of stories. We have a lot of great street level vigilantism as well. Introduction to a lot of fan favorite Marvel characters from this universe. And in general, we have a really interesting type of storytelling device here where the writer often uses second person. When referring to the Iron Fist, they'll say something like, "You then went over here," speaking as if you yourself, the the reader are Iron Fist. It's a really unconventional literary technique, but again, it just was effective for me, and I was pulled along this honestly pretty rad series. A lot of great action sequences here. I think if you're a fan of the Netflix series or some other runs or maybe crossovers or events that feature Danny Rand Iron Fist, this might be an essential collection. I do think a lot of people gloss over it, and I think that's a shame, as this Bronze Age hit just really worked for me. So as I said with the previous entry, if you're interested in more details, you can check out my review, or you can try to pick up your own copy of Iron Fist, Danny Rand, The Early Years Omnibus from Marvel Comics. And hey, while I have you, if you're enjoying this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing comic book based content like this, list videos, reviews, unboxings, shorts, and more. Anyway, thank you for considering. Now on with the list. Next up from Image Comics, we have Skyward from Joe Henderson and Lee Garbett. This is an oversized hardcover edition from Image, and it collects the entirety of this short series. What we have here is another premise-based sci-fi adventure-like comic series. We follow a young woman who grew up in a world of extremely low to no gravity. Basically, something happened, some event, and all of a sudden gravity almost ceased to exist in this world. Now, she was a baby at the time, and she's raised to know nothing different. This series poses the question, if all of a sudden we had limited to no gravity, how does civilization and culture evolve, adapt, and survive, or in some cases fail to do so? This is also a kind of adventure odyssey kind of series. I don't really want to spoil too much, but a lot of great twists and turns throughout this run. I think that this is another one that for whatever reason gets kind of glossed over. I first heard about it watching Comics Are Dope with BJ Kicks. He had this book, he reviewed it, and I just thought it sounded fascinating, and I had never heard about it before. I got it on sale, picked it up, read it, and honestly pretty much enjoyed the whole ride. It again is a really fun concept given life. The artwork we have throughout is absolutely stunning, from the character models to kind of how they visualize what this world would look like with low gravity. I just liked it all. And coming from Image, I know they do some really stellar series, and I just think this is one that gets passed over quite often, and I'm not really sure why. I would consider it for me an absolute hidden gem, one I would recommend to those that maybe want a break from the standard superhero comics fare, but still want kind of a lighter, adventure-based, fun story that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a tight, just couple issues. You can really read it in one sitting if you're really committed to it. And yeah, I just really like it. And this oversized hardcover edition from Image was made with a lot of care. We got some great extras at the back. Overall, just a really outstanding collection that I definitely recommend. Next on this list is a relatively new entry. I believe this whole series came out in 2023 if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, we're looking at Gotham City Year 1 by Tom King and Phil Hester, and of course this was published by DC Comics. So using the Year 1 moniker immediately evokes kind of, Frank Miller's classic Batman Year 1. I didn't really know what to expect here, but I was absolutely pulled in by the title. I like that it's not based around a superhero, it's based on the city of Gotham, which is known for its corruption and, just need for Batman, need for justice. And this story is basically a gritty mystery crime noir kind of story set long before Bruce Wayne was born. We do have some wraparound narratives that are in the modern day, kind of Batman era, but for the most part, we're looking back in Gotham, and we focus on, some of Bruce Wayne's ancestors from 1 to 2 generations back, and this private eye or detective that's basically trying to find a missing child. Things get pretty bleak at different points, but I absolutely loved this entire ride. This series was also my introduction to the artist Phil Hester, who I've not really seen in other works as of yet. If you do have recommendations for more works with his artwork, I would definitely be interested in that. But I think he was pitch perfect for this noir-like series. The character models are a bit jagged, sharp-pointed, and everything is so distinct and vivid. I just really loved it. His entire vision of Gotham City, especially in this era, kind of at the eve of its central kind of corruption and downfall, it just really worked for me. And Tom King is one of my more favorite modern comic book writers just in general, and I had a feeling this really wouldn't miss for me, and it certainly didn't. In fact, I just can't wait to hopefully in the future get more kind of crime or kind of noir genre with Tom King's imprint on it here, or thumbprint rather. I love the voice Tom King used throughout this book, kind of having that hard-boiled, terse kind of narration style from the primary character here. Love the twists and turns, love the mystery, and this book just left me wanting more. I want to see what this team can come up with, and I really just liked this series overall. If this sounds fun to you, definitely seek out Gotham City Year 1. Next up today is a book I've talked about a handful of times on this channel, and yet I've never done a full review of this run. If that's something you'd be interested in, definitely let me know. Today we're talking about Wolverine by Greg Rucka. This is the Ultimate Collection paperback. Now, this is a standard size trade paperback collection that unfortunately has been long out of print. Although with all of these recent omnibuses based on Wolverine, I sincerely hope we do get an omnibus or some other kind of reprint for this run. Greg Rucka is definitely one of my favorite comic book writers, and I was so fascinated that he had a run on Wolverine, and for whatever reason, this is really not talked about too often that I've heard. I think probably because it's been long out of print, but this book starts with a bang. In fact, I once upon a time did a whole video on this channel talking about how the first comic in this Greg Rucka Wolverine run is probably my favorite Wolverine comic of all time. I don't want to spoil too much here, but basically a girl is endangered and Wolverine takes up her cause. I really like it. From there we spin out into kind of bigger conspiracies, and this whole run really has Wolverine sort of traipsing through the country and kind of just bumbling into one kind of misdeed or criminal situation after another, trying to right wrongs and, just do what he's best at. I really like this because this felt like a back to basics kind of Wolverine run for me. It didn't really go into the more super heroic aspect that we get with Wolverine. This is more of kind of the hard traveling hero, kind of drifter Wolverine, but I think it just worked. I think Greg Rucka absolutely understands the voice of Logan or Wolverine. The characters all feel very organic, lived in, true, and the artwork we get throughout this volume I also thought was really visually striking. Again, I think that this is a truly underrated run for our favorite Wolverine here. I do hope, even though it's out of print, that some people that are interested do seek out reading these issues, whether you find the single issues, you find this paperback on secondary markets, or maybe you buy it digitally, because I think these issues are really fun, and hopefully Marvel will give us a reprint in some fashion someday. But definitely don't miss out on Wolverine by Greg Rucka. If you're a fan of Wolvie, I definitely think that this is an underrated hidden gem. Okay, next up is a book I can't wait to talk about. I love this. This is Fantastic Four, Fate of the Four. This is an oversized hardcover edition from Marvel Comics. This whole run was written by Chip Zdarsky, one of my other favorite modern comic writers. Now, interestingly enough, it's called Fantastic Four, but it actually collects issues of Marvel 2-in-1. That's where this series takes place. But I see why they marketed it as Fantastic Four, even though it primarily follows the adventures of Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Johnny Storm's Human Torch. The two of them basically go on sort of an interdimensional saga trying to find their missing family members or teammates, and I just think that this is a really great little maxi series from Marvel. This takes place in the wake of Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars in kind of an interesting time for this group of heroes. I won't spoil too much, but definitely within the first couple pages you know exactly when this is set, and that's all I'll really say about that. We get some really moving character moments for both of our primary heroes throughout this. We have some really fun villain interactions, great supporting characters, and kind of cameos from different Marvel heroes or villains or, again, just other characters. The art throughout it changes hands a bit, but it's all really strong, at least in my mind. The series starts great, ends great, everything in between was just a lot of fun. I think if you care about these characters, again, especially the Thing and the Human Torch, this is probably a must-read. This is such an important chapter of their lives that I think is often glossed over. In fact, I only know a handful of people that have actually read Fate of the Four, but I do recommend it. I think it's a great hidden gem, especially if you're a fan of the Fantastic Four. Again, just a really important chapter for some of these characters that I think a lot of people just kind of bypass. This takes place, I believe, before the Dan Slott Fantastic Four era, for those that are also tracking kind of ongoing or longer Fantastic Four runs. This again bridges the gap post Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars and before that era of Dan Slott's Fantastic Four. But yeah, really great book here. I did do a full review on the channel. If you're interested, you can find it. But yeah, really good stuff here. Recommend it. Hidden gem. Okay, next up is a Marvel Epic Collection. This is Silver Surfer Thanos Quest by Jim Starlin, Ron Marz, and others. So this is another hidden gem pick for me. I think that Silver Surfer in general is a hidden gem character. I think almost all of his runs are severely underrated, and I'm hoping Marvel does more with this character moving forward. But to me, this is one of my favorite eras of Silver Surfer I've ever had the pleasure of reading. Jim Starlin has long been my favorite cosmic Marvel writer. I just think so much of what he did did to set up the early Marvel cosmic universe is so just without rival, without peer. I think that he is really the basis for so much of kind of celestial conflict in the Marvel universe, and I love it. I really do. And I think he understands the Surfer. I love that we still get kind of the brooding, philosophical Surfer, but we also get a lot of just kind of interstellar action. I really enjoyed this book. I think for fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you liked the Infinity Saga, all the stories with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet and everything, we definitely have a lot of crossover with that here in this book. This leads in also very nicely to the Infinity Gauntlet event from Marvel Comics, so you definitely get notable appearances by, you guessed it, Thanos, Silver Surfer, Doctor Strange, and more. Just a fantastic collection here. I did read and review it a few years ago on the channel, but I still think about it quite often. In fact, it's one of my favorite Silver Surfer epic collections, and I do have a handful of them. I just think it's all great. The artwork we have throughout it as well is so sharp, and in many ways, this is my definitive look for the Silver Surfer. When I think about Silver Surfer in print, this is often the character model I see, the art we have throughout this collection. But yeah, I really love it. And for those that don't know, this is a Marvel epic collection, as I mentioned earlier. It's a standard size trade paperback. Again, these usually are around 500 pages, give or take. They usually collect about 20 issues, give or take. Within each volume, these are all collected chronologically, but Marvel decides to print each volume itself kind of out of order oftentimes, so you don't really know what you're going to get. But when you pick these up, you get a solid chunk of a run oftentimes, and I just think it's a really great way to collect Marvel comics. Anyway, another one of my hidden gem picks, Silver Surfer Thanos Quest. Okay, next up is a book I'm actually still finishing up, but I can't wait to talk about it more on the channel, so stay tuned. This is Inside the Mind of Sherlock Holmes, The Case of the Scandalous Ticket by Cyril Lieren and Benoit Dahan. This is a release from Titan Comics, and it's in a beautiful, oversized, kind of boxy format. And how do I describe this book? Essentially, it is a Sherlock Holmes mystery. It's a brand new one that you've never heard about, but it has that kind of pitch-perfect tone and feel of a lot of good Sherlock Holmes mysteries, and the fact that we have it in a visual format in the comic book medium, I just think is fantastic. I think what's really setting this apart for me, though, is how this is visually organized. The art in this book is truly incredible and experimental in many ways. We have a kind of thread, like depiction of a piece of thread that goes throughout this whole run, basically, and it's sort of a visual representation of the thread or the leads that Sherlock Holmes follows. We go throughout his head, kind of literally at some points. We see how he thinks, how he finds clues, how he digests and processes information, all while in the kind of modern moment seeing these scenes play out. They try to find leads, him and Watson, trying to basically find what happened to this gentleman who lost his memory. Along the way, we find some people maybe murdered, perhaps, and we just have him going about London, trying to interview, find clues, and solve a mystery. Again, I think that this feels like a pitch-perfect Sherlock Holmes story in the vein of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, but I love the feel of this book. I think that this was really made with love over at Titan Comics. The art is just exceptional. It really feels like a period piece kind of comic as well. Again, I don't have much like this in my collection, but I think it is visually outstanding and written just amazing. I really like it. And there's even things you do with the book, like gently fold pieces over or look through pieces of the comic in a piece of light to see a clue, and it's all just done brilliantly. I don't really know how else to describe it. I don't want to spoil too much here, but if you're interested, I do plan to do a full review on the channel when I complete it. So if it hasn't come out yet, definitely stay tuned in coming weeks. Next on our list today, I have Batgirl and Robin Year One. I should say these are two separate titles, Batgirl Year One and Robin Year One. I just happen to have them both in this beautiful trade paperback. They were written by Scott Beatty, Chuck Dixon, and with more creators involved, of course. But these are really fun, kind of like what I mentioned about Gotham City Year One. It borrows that moniker, and we essentially have origin stories for the heroes included here. With Robin, this is the Dick Grayson Robin, and Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. These are really, really delightful reads. They're thrilling, they're well-paced, they're interesting, and the actual art style we get is gorgeous throughout it. There's kind of a rounded, more animated, cartoony look to everything. The color palette is vivid, highly saturated, larger than life, and it just works for the storytelling. The Robin story in particular, I really had a heart for. I absolutely loved it. I actually think it's one of my favorite Robin origin-ish kind of stories out there on the market. It's a great Two-Face story too. I put this and probably Dark Victory as my favorite Robin origin stories to date, although I did like Jeff Lemire's Robin and Batman as well. I'm just a sucker for a good origin story retelling. Also in this book, of course, is Batgirl Year One. This was fun for me because I haven't read a lot of Batgirl or Batgirl origin story kinds of work, and I just liked it. I think Batgirl herself, Barbara Gordon, comes off as so very likable in this, and I just think that this is a definitive read for Barbara Gordon Batgirl fans. Now, my actual edition or collection here might be long out of print, but they recently released a box set that included Robin Year One, Batgirl Year One, and Nightwing Year One, if I'm not mistaken. I believe at the time of this recording that is still in print and available for those interested in picking up these titles. I am happy they decided to reprint after all this time because I know a lot of people were seeking out these collections that had just been in kind of the DC out of print title area for a while. Anyway, definitely recommend as my hidden read choice. I know this technically counts as two separate books, but I have it in a single collection, so we're going to count it as one. Okay, and rounding out my list of hidden gems today, we have Howard the Duck by Chip Zdarsky and Joe Quinones, Omnibus. This is, of course, a Marvel Comics release, and it's one of my personal favorite comic book runs I've read in recent years. I just loved this. I don't know why. I think that this book is still available last time I checked, and a lot of people gloss this over for whatever reason, but I thought it was one of the most fun runs I've had in recent memory. Essentially, it is, a Howard the Duck based run, but I think if you're a fan of kind of the Marvel Universe in general, this is a book to read as it really pokes fun at the Marvel Universe in a way that is both thoughtful but honestly hysterically funny at many points. And like only Chip Zdarsky can do for me in many ways, we run the gambit between real lighthearted great humor and deep kind of tear-jerking character developing kind of moments. We get everything in this book. We go to the stars, we have New York-based mysteries and beyond. We have so many fantastic superhero and villain cameos throughout this entire run as well. I really can't underscore how fun this run is. I think that's the most defining word I can say about it is fun. The art throughout from Joe Quinones is cartoony, animated, surreal, and just a blast from page one all the way through the end. Admittedly, as you could probably tell, this is a smaller omnibus, but it does collect the entire run by Zdarsky and Quinones. It does also have a good handful of extras at the back, and again, I just think it's a great collection. If you can find it in print and still for a good price, it does have my full recommendation behind it. I did review this at one time as well on this channel, so if you're interested in more details about it and my thoughts on the full book, definitely seek out that video. I know I've even mentioned this in previous hidden gem videos, I think, but I just like talking about it. I think it's a great run. I want more people to check it out, especially for Marvel Comics fans like myself. Howard the Duck by Chip Zdarsky and Joe Quinones, a fantastic hidden gem. Okay, and with that, I think we're going to go ahead and begin to bring this video to a close. So this is just 10 great comic books that I wanted to talk about and recommend. These are some of my hidden gems. I try to do these videos periodically just because I really enjoy finding books in my collection that maybe are not talked about today as much, I think deserve more readership, or generally I just want to recommend and speak to for a few more minutes here and there. That's really what we had here today in my hidden gem video. Let me know what you think. I tried to go through a couple publishers as well. But yeah, I would really like to know, have you read any of my picks here? Are you interested in any of these books? And maybe what are some of your deep cut, hidden gem kind of comic book recommendations that maybe myself or some of the other people watching have never read that you just want to highly recommend? Let's get that all thrown in the comments. If you're interested, I would always love to see great recommendations in there because I'm always looking for good stuff to read, and I know a lot of you are as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the video as well in the comments if you'd like. I always appreciate constructive feedback. But thank you again, all of you, for watching. This has been so much fun, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your comment, a like if you liked it, and just check out some of my other videos on your way out if you got the time. Thanks, bye.